Hey, how are you?
I'm doing all right.
Aren't we all thrilled to be
Forgot my
together?
carbonated water.
I know
I brought 2 bottles just in case.
Normal stuff.
2 bottles of what?
Water.
No one can tell what that is. It's sealed.
Vodka.
You're the second person.
Gaveling in, call to order for our joint session meeting with the Planning and Zoning, the council, and all of our esteemed guests. So we're officially gavelled in. How do we start this, John?
Let's do an introduction of some of the folks that we have here tonight. So
Perfect.
I know we have some new council members. We also have some of our consultant staff here with our city engineer and city attorney that they haven't been to a meeting yet in a couple months.
Perfect,
So
perfect.
Sometimes that's a good thing when you don't have to have the consultants at the meeting. So
Sure.
we have Bill Ingerman from WHKS and Shelly Ryan from Hoffberry, our attorney. So for our new council members that haven't met them, they're here tonight. And then throughout the audience, we have a bunch of different folks kind of represented, but mostly it's folks from Tract and Kimley Horn and their consultants that are going to kind of give us an overview of the AUAR process. So as the last couple meetings and what we've heard, you've heard us talking about the scoping document that was kind of finalized and been published and is out there for comment now. But they're going to give us a little bit more kind of depth on what the next parts of that are going to look like, where people have opportunities to speak, what generally it is, because we do want to make sure there's some awareness on what the comment periods are for the AUAR process, then what the comment periods are going to be for kind of the zoning land use process, and as the project's going to move into the next phases and hopefully get to the point of development where those opportunities will rise in future meetings for comments. So it's really taking our time and effort, and I'm really appreciative of the folks for being here today to kind of help us navigate this and help our residents and people in the surrounding community as we annex this property to kind of know what this development could look like, what the process is going to look like, where their voices are going to be heard, and that input is going to kind of fall into play for us to take into consideration as we move through this. So I'm going to kick it off to Bill, who's going to kind of give us a little bit more rundown and then pass it on before we get into the presentation.
Bill, before we get started, I do see that we need an approval of the agenda. So before we get going too far, let's just, I'll take a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Motion from Diane, second from Ryan. All those in favor say aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, John. Well, John kind of really summed it up pretty well, but in your packet, there is a memo from me just kind of outlining what John had mentioned. It also outlines some of the timelines. So we are actually right now in our public comment period, okay? So that started on, actually, what's the date today, Mayor? Yeah, the 4th. So today is the start of the public comment. So on our website, and the link is in the memo, is the scoping document that John referred to, and a memo as well on how to submit comments. And those comments are for 30 days, so those will run through April 3rd. And I think the key distinction that John mentioned, this is a scoping document. What that means is this is just laying out what's going to be studied. And we're going to have Ashley Payne from Kimley Horn is going to give us a little bit longer, but I think that's important. So the scoping document has some key items that it's going to look at. It's going to look at impact on water of this development. It's going to look at impact on water resources, geology, soils, wildlife, historic properties, and so on. Okay, and what it's going to look at is 2 different development scenarios, and Ashley will explain that a little more. And that is our job as the council. We are the body, what's called the responsible government unit. We are the body that is collecting these comments. We are making sure these comments are addressed. How we do that is we're going to work with the consultant, with the developer's consultant, to make sure they're to our satisfaction. So far, what we have done as staff is we have reviewed these documents. We've had a back and forth with comments. They've made revisions, et cetera, to where we are comfortable with these going out to notice. So with that introduction, Mayor, Ashley Payne from Kimley Horn, I think Ashley's next up, is going to go through some slides unless you have any questions of me.
Any from the council? All right.
All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Oh. HDMI or
Thank you. Good evening, council and planning commission members. I'm Ashley Payne. I'm an environmental scientist at Kimley Horn. I've been doing environmental reviews for almost 20 years now. And I'm just here, we're gonna talk a little bit, as Bill had mentioned, just more about the AUAR process. I think I had spoken with a few of you earlier when the RGU agreement was before council, but did want to give kind of an overview of environmental review documents, knowing it might be a little bit new, especially the AUAR. So to kind of take it back, and I think this is all in your packet, we'll also explain it on the screen. So environmental review is a state process that aims to avoid and minimize damage to Minnesota's environmental resources caused by public and private action. So not just private projects, but public projects also require an environmental review. The Environmental Quality Board oversees the environmental review program. There are some links kind of here, but the EQB is how we'll refer to it. One thing about environmental reviews is there's way too many acronyms. So if I say something and you have questions, or if you guys have questions as I'm talking, I do want to make this a little bit interactive so we can answer those questions up front. So as Bill had mentioned, the RGU is the responsible government unit. As noted in Minnesota rules, the RGU is identified as either the single government unit that proposes to carry out or has sole jurisdiction, or two or more government units that propose to carry out or have jurisdiction to approve the project. That is actually the case for this particular site, and that was the RGU agreement that came forward earlier this year to allow the city of Cannon Falls to act as the RGU for this environmental review document. So the environmental review program is not an approval process. It doesn't approve or deny a project. It just lays out the existing conditions, potential impacts for a particular project, and then it also identifies mitigation strategies or mitigation measures that could be looked at or could be enforced by the RGU for a particular project. There's multiple levels of environmental review. There's the environmental assessment worksheet, there is the environmental impact statement, and then there's the alternative urban area-wide review. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about the AUAR, or the alternative urban area-wide review. So just looking at what does require an environmental review in the state of Minnesota. So we just have kind of a handy cheat sheet. I know it's a little bit hard to read, so I apologize for that. But just looking at certain thresholds. So if a project meets or exceeds a threshold based on state statute or Minnesota rules in a particular size of a municipality, it would require its own environmental review. So there's a little chart that we're showing on the screen right now that identifies environmental, or the thresholds for industrial, commercial, and institutional facilities. So that's actually the category that's defined in state statute or Minnesota rules. And the Minnesota rules are 4410, 4300, 4410, 4400. If you need some late night reading, it's really great. It's very, very technical, but we're just looking at this. So anything over, 250 or 500,000 square feet would require an environmental review or an EIS. An alternate to an EIS or an environmental impact statement is allowing the alternative urban area-wide review process. And if you're looking at the form on the screen, it says, first class city, second class city, third and fourth. That's based on population, and that's also defined in state statute. So in the state of Minnesota, we actually only have 4 municipalities that are considered first class cities, and that's just based on a population over 100,000 or defined in state statute. So the Alternative Urban Area-Wide Review, or the AUAR, is a hybrid process between an environmental assessment worksheet and an EIS, or an environmental impact statement. An RGU can allow a project to move forward with an AUAR if the project, like I said, exceeds an EIS threshold, and it allows it based on scenarios. So it allows it, an AUAR allows it as more of a planning tool to identify, multiple development scenarios for a particular project area. And so as Bill had defined earlier, this particular site, we're looking at two potential development scenarios moving forward. And for an AUAR, there's also what we consider the AUAR study area, which is the geographic area that defines the project. And so just some of the topics, I guess, any questions so far? Yep, go ahead.
I guess I have one question. Why the AUAR instead of a EIS or EAW? Like, are we skirting around anything by going with the AUAR, or because I know how painful an EIS can be?
Yeah, we are actually not. So an AUAR is essentially an EIS level of review, but we're looking at based on scenarios and not just a particular project.
Yeah.
So you're still having to go through a draft, scoping process, which we're in right now. Then there's the preparation of the draft AUAR, that 30-day public comment period. After that, it's revised to the final, then it goes out for another 10-day objection period as well. So we're not actually skirting around anything. Okay. It also allows, mitigation strategies. So identifying particular, strategies for, we're looking at those two scenarios. So, scenario A or scenario 1 could require this for mitigation, or if, scenario 2 were to move forward, it could be different mitigation. Okay. And a lot of times we see that for utilities, traffic analysis, those type of things.
Okay. And I guess I have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
Public comment period, you said it just started today. Is that something that we get to see, or is that something that's done, at the administrator, engineer level? How does that work?
So all the public comments, we are required to assemble them, and then we would show you those, or you would see those comments. And then if they're just a straight, I like this project, or I don't like it, there's maybe no comment. If there's something like, please describe X, we would then ask Ashley or her team to address that comment. Okay. Actually, we address all comments.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, and so all those comments will be received by the city. We will help prepare responses to those, as Bill had mentioned. And then after the first 30-day public comment period, the documents with the final AUAR order and scoping will come in front of the city council, and the city council will need to adopt the final order. So essentially saying, we want you to prepare an AUAR for this project. So right now, we're just in the scoping phase, identifying the methodology. So what will be studied as part of the AUAR, the scenarios, so those two scenarios, and then actually the study area. Yeah.
Looking at all the maps in this document, this looks like an area that is larger than what I originally thought that TRAC had requested. Is this correct, or?
I think this is the same study area that we've always been looking at.
When we first looked at what TRAC was proposing to where they were going to build and everything, I thought it was a smaller portion of that area than this total. But there again, the other maps were not real clear.
Yeah,
This is all the land that is being proposed to be purchased by TRAC for development.
Yes, correct. Yes.
Okay.
The two, so our study area is approximately 251 acres. And currently, there's some land that's within the city of Cannon Falls, and then there is a portion of land that's within Randolph Township.
Yep. Good.
Okay. So just topics that are studied in an AUAR. Bill kind of went through this. So climate adaptation and resilience, contamination, hazardous wastes, greenhouse gas emissions, water resources, noise, fish and wildlife, plant communities, land use, geology, soils, historic properties, visual, air, transportation, and then also cumulative. So those are all the different categories, and those are all the different topics that are actually studied as part of the AUAR document. And I guess just kind of going back to the topics of studied in the AUAR. So the way that the AUAR is laid out, and if you have the scoping document in front of you right now, like I said, we are just identifying what we will study. So a lot of it is existing conditions information, and then what we will actually study as part of the AUAR. It does identify the different scenarios, but as we move into the AUAR document, it will identify, like I said, existing conditions, potential impacts or proposed impacts for each of the scenarios. It could be that the same impacts will result from either scenario, so that could be defined in the document as well. And then it will also identify mitigation strategies. So we like to call them strategies because, you know, if things were to change, we're looking at maximum density that could go out there. So the scenarios that are being studied in the AOAR might not necessarily be what is constructed at the end or what might come in through entitlements. But it so identifies the strategy, so what would be required for mitigation if that were to occur. And in the mitigation plan, it will outline all of the different sections, like I said, the mitigation, and then it, you know, could define who is the responsible party as well. So environmental documentation kind of oversees, like I said, EISs, AOARs, and EAWs. This graphic is a little bit hard to read, so I know it's in your packet. Actually outlines all of the different components of a particular, you know, technology park data center, and the different oversight agencies or different agencies that will review it have to provide some sort of permit, approval, or, you know, like I said, will provide some sort of input on the project. So as you can see, there's a lot of different agencies, there's a lot of different components that go into this. And so, you know, all of this, a lot of this information, there's a few categories here that wouldn't be included as part of an AOAR. There's another oversight body besides just the Minnesota EQB. But most of these categories are included in the AOAR. And so as part of the distribution of all the documents, they go to the state agencies. So there's about 25 state agencies that do receive a copy of that, and they would provide comments if they do have comments on the overall document. So this is a good, you know, timeline or snapshot to show all of the different review agencies and all of the different, you know, components for the project. Is any questions on this?
I just want to, you know, to the council, I love seeing this because I think there might be a lot of people in the community that have a lot of questions already, and they come directly to myself or the council, and to have this sheet to show how many different agencies have to look at this and give this a thumbs up without just saying, well, the council said they could. Like, there's a lot of agencies, this isn't, there's nothing that's going to be done. You know, we're very transparent with who's all involved and all the requirements. So I really think that this is wonderful to have.
Yeah, and on the review agencies as well, those agencies that are listed on the EQB distribution list get a copy of the scoping document and our methodology for what we're going to include or the studies that will be completed for the AOAR, and they can provide comment on that. So if they, you know, a lot of times we see comments on traffic, like, hey, have you thought about this? Make sure you're looking at this intersection or something like that. Or, you know, DNR, making sure you're addressing endangered species or, you know, potential water appropriations that might be needed or something like that. So a lot of times we're getting comments in advance of the AOAR document to make sure that we're starting to address some of those maybe questions that the agencies have or some of the concerns. And like I said, the Environmental Quality Board, the EQB, kind of oversees the environmental review process. And, you know, the agencies that are listed here, if they do have questions or something, they can go and talk to the EQB as well. So just wanted to outline some of the steps that I've kind of mentioned a few times here for an AOAR for a large project. So there's kind of the standard AOAR process, and then there's the process for large projects. So those are the projects that have one component that exceeds an EIS threshold, or one of the scenarios encompasses over 50% of the AOAR set area. So we tick both of those boxes, and so we're going to go through the steps for a large project. So those steps are the draft order and scoping document. So that's the process we're in right now. So that's a 30-day public and agency comment period. Starts today, runs through April 3rd. The final order, so after all of those comments are received by the city, and we work through any changes that are needed or responses to comments, that will go into the final order and the scoping document. So the final order and the scoping document is adopted by the city council, and that's essentially saying that you are ordering the preparation for the AUAR. So I know we're kind of already in that process, but you're officially saying, yes, we want an AUAR to be completed on this property. These are the scenarios to be studied. This is the study area, and this is the information that's going to be provided in the AUAR document. From there, we move into the AUAR and the mitigation plan. And so there's the draft AUAR mitigation plan. Once that's, ready and final, that goes forward to a 30-day public comment period. From there, those comments, it's kind of the same process. Those comments are received. We'll work with the city to respond to any of those comments. And I will say substantive comments, like Bill said, if we get one that says, we really like this project, we say, comment noted. Sometimes we get them, but they don't like the project, we'll want to make sure that we're responding to the substantive comments. After the 30-day public comment period, we prepare the final AUAR and mitigation plan. So any changes that come in based on the comments will get revised. And then that document actually has to go out for a 10-day state agency objection period. So all of the state agencies, so those 25 agencies, get another 10-day comment period or comment window to provide any final comments to make sure that they are comfortable with the mitigation that's outlined in the AUAR document. After we get through the 10-day objection period, then that will come back to City Council for final adoption. And so you're adopting the final AUAR document and then the mitigation plan for the overall review. And so, as you can see, there's multiple steps. This will come back in front of you a couple of times, and then there's also, 2 additional comment periods for either the public or the state agencies. Is any questions on this process or kind of where we're at in the process?
We've got a question. How often do you make significant changes in that period where after you take all the comments and then, redraft and then that final, how often do you make a significant change?
We don't usually make a significant change, especially if we've already gone through the scoping process. A lot of times those comments are already vetted. So I would say there could be some, small tweaks or changes that would be made between the draft order and scoping document and then the draft AUAR. Very rarely do we make significant changes to the document. I don't think in all my years of doing environmental reviews or AUARs, we've had to, send it back out for another comment period or something just because there was something, significantly that had changed.
Thank you.
So the steps for the large project, it is, it does add some additional time to the overall, process, but it does really vet out to make sure that, all of the agencies or review agencies are comfortable with the methodology and what's being studied as part of the AUAR. So this is just kind of a tentative schedule for the AUAR, and I say tentative just because, things can fluctuate or change. So you can see where we are in the process. We're at the draft order scoping 30-day public comment period. As I had mentioned before, that goes, March 4th through April 3rd. And then after that, this will come in front of City Council, or the final order for the preparation of the AUAR will come in front of City Council in April, and then we will go out for the 30-day public comment period for the draft AUAR. So we're looking at finalizing the full process summer 2025. So we still have a few months left. I think the anticipated schedule has like August timeframe, but again, just wanting to make sure we have enough time to address all the comments and everything. And then I did just include the link to the EQB website that provides a little bit more information about an AUAR, kind of the process. There is kind of a reference guide that the EQB has published for AUAR documents. Any questions so far? No? Okay.
All right.
I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking, so if I'm talking too much or too
Doing-
fast,
you're
please
doing
let me
great.
know.
You're doing great.
So we just wanted to provide kind of a little bit of a snapshot of overview of, I guess, where we are in the process for this project and then kind of what is remaining. So as you can see on the left side, we're in the environmental review. So we're in scoping, and so that's that 30-day public comment period. And so you can kind of see the project site AUAR. and then all of the entitlements that follow and all of the other approvals that follow after that. So we are in the very early stages of the project and still working through everything. So we just wanted to share that as well. This is a little bit helpful kind of for general public as well to understand where we are for environmental review, how many different steps there are. This will come back in front of Planning Commission, City Council. This goes out, like I said, for multiple public comment periods for the environmental review process, and then kind of what's remaining. This is also a lot of information on one sheet, so.
I would like to comment. I don't know. Wouldn't say that the end part is to scale because,
Right.
construction period it's going to take a lot longer
Correct.
likely than even the study part and plan. So don't expect it. Oh, wow, we spent 6 months on this. They can construct it in a month.
Yeah, definitely not. We're trying to squeeze it on one sheet of paper, but yeah, definitely extends out from construction and then, certificate of occupancy.
So, if people have questions about water usage and all of that, that would come more in the mitigation type thing, or where would those comments be?
Yeah, so if they have comments on, water or utilities, that some of that information will be included as part of the AUAR. That is a section in the AUAR document. So we will talk about water usage or potential water usage, right? We don't know exactly what's going to happen out there because we're in the very early stages of everything, but we'll talk about potential water usage. We'll also talk about potential mitigation. So if the project uses X many gallons or million gallons per day, this is what would be required from a city infrastructure standpoint or a government agency standpoint. Because if there's a change to a water appropriations permit that's needed, that will be outlined in the AUAR document. Also gets into sanitary sewer, so wastewater and wastewater treatment is also addressed as part of an AUAR document as well.
I was just
Yep.
trying to figure out kind of where I saw the outline of it. And it was, to be discussed later, and I thought, I didn't know what part of the.
Yep, so that will be included in the draft AUAR, and then, if there's any changes or additional information will be included in the final. And then that will also get kind of vetted through the full process as well. So we're just looking at the study right now, and then as, the project progresses, the project team will be working really closely with the city and the city engineer to better understand what all of that looks like.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
I was just wondering, you have your time frames in there, but is this like the only city that's got this program going? I mean, we got a lot of state organizations that have to be involved in this in the final approval. Is there are we competing with them so that this time frame could actually extend further, or yours is set right where it is, we don't have to worry about extensions?
No, I mean, typically not. For the AUAR process, you wouldn't need to worry about extension. So the city is the RGU, they're the ones that approve the document. All of those other components could be in addition to our current, the AUAR that is currently underway or that we're working on through scoping. But the city is the one that would be, looking at the overall timeline. And there are specific timelines set in state statute. So from the date that you adopt an order to prepare an AUAR, you have 120 days. Now that can be extended, but in state statute, so like this process, it couldn't be delayed. I mean, potentially you could, but what they try to get at is just so that the process continues to move. And so in state statute, it does say for an AUAR, similar to an EIS has particular timeframes as well, just to make sure that they don't extend out, years and years like other states. But in state statute, it does say once you adopt the final order for an AUAR, you have 120 days to adopt the final AUAR. But in some of those other components, I guess let's go back to that slide. So in here, just looking at the overall information here, so looking at the different components, you know, some of those additional approvals would have their own timelines as well.
But it would fall within.
Nope, so that would be in addition to this AUAR process. So right now, we're just looking at that, but some of these other ones could, like fuel storage, for instance, looking at, you know, a potential air permit, that would come, you know, after an AUAR is approved. So the one thing about an AUAR is once you've started the process, like the city couldn't approve a development to go in and you couldn't start construction on a project within the AUAR study area if it hasn't already been entitled.
I guess I got a question here. So can you go back to the slide with the development process, I guess? Because I just want to make sure I'm interpreting this right. So the numbers up there, the purple dots,
Yep.
that's every opportunity for the public to comment on this, right? Or those are the timelines the public can comment on this?
Correct, from like a 30-day public comment period. But I think, Trish, I don't know where you are. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like for planning commission, city council, if there's a hearing that has to occur as part of that process, the public could comment on that as well.
Okay. I'm just trying to get from a public standpoint, if there are concerned residents out there, I guess I would see, I mean, if there's a comment and they have concerns, get them in as soon as possible would be my advice. But I think once we get to site plan review, you or whoever has already done all of that work of this is what we're gonna put in here, AKA we probably won't change the plans based on your input. Does that sound appropriate, or? Now's the time, if the public's concerned, I would say, looking at this timeline now, by the time we get done with this AUAR, that's probably when we would want all of the public input.
Yes, so I'm Kristen Dean, I'm with Tract. Thanks for allowing us to have this opportunity to explain this process and also just another chance to meet with you guys. So the AUAR is really this preliminary study of the land and looking at these alternative scenarios. And it's beneficial in that it helps us understand what mitigation measures need to be considered as we move through the process of creating the development plans, the defined development plans for this site. So the AUAR is very high level. It's this early stage kind of umbrella guiding document. There are opportunities for public comment in the AUAR. And it really does need to precede our final, our final zoning of the site. And we're navigating this along with Randolph Township too, right, at the same time. So as we're going through this AUAR process, we are going to be talking to city staff. We are going to be talking to the community about the rezoning. And so the rezoning is more of the local level framework. It's the setbacks, it's the height, it's the, access points. It's what's, really trying to build out the framework of the horizontal and vertical development, with the AUAR guiding any kind of mitigation that needs to be considered through these processes. We are going to hold a community meeting. It's going to be late in April is what we're flagging. We're looking at dates right now. The reason it's late in April is because that gives us time to get further down the road with the AUAR and also engage in the conversations with staff about the PUD and rezoning framework, so that when we meet with the public, we have more answers than outstanding questions. It does not mean that we've figured everything out by then, because we want their comments to also guide the development of the property. So we're trying to really find that sweet spot as to when to present information to the public. And so we don't want to do it, too early, but we don't want to do it too late either. And so late April feels like we'll be in a good place for that. Then we'll be moving through the rezoning process, and that's just a different set of review criteria. It's the local process that we're doing with the city. And so then the public comment will be reflected or be tied to what is being proposed through that rezoning process. And the AUAR, we're still going through the AUAR as we're kind of moving through the rezoning, but we're going to be kind of coming into the tail end of the AUAR while we're picking up steam with the rezoning. Does that help?
That's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I just want people to understand when they should come forth with concerns, comments, et cetera. When's the appropriate time to do it?
I think that they're going to be what we want to try to manage is people coming to their own conclusions about things because they don't have enough information. But we can't come to them with information until we've done all of our studies. And so we're going to create a website. We'll have contact information. Brian McClung is here. He's our PR person. And so he's our boots on the ground, Dakota County resident that can meet with people one-on-one, can meet with he'll be facilitating our community meeting. So we have a real local presence here along with our consultants too. So we want to make sure that the public has opportunities to engage. We'll have the website, we'll have email address, we'll have a 1-800 number, plenty of opportunity for not just that community meeting engagement, but one-on-one engagement too with people. We think that helps. A community meeting, we've all been through them. You know, they're a small amount of time to try to get a lot of questions answered, and people may not feel like they had an adequate time for that. So that's why we want to have these additional meetings with them. But what I also want to explain on what is TRAC's model is we're establishing the framework for future development. And so people are going to want to know what is it going to look like. We have some conceptual ideas of what it will look like, but that's not what we're doing in this stage of development. That's not what we're doing in the AUAR, and that's not what we're doing in the rezoning. That actual, the details of the horizontal and vertical development come at the site plan level. So we're building everything up so that by the time someone comes in at a site plan, they have all these additional regulatory measures that we've all vetted through together through this process, and they have to comply with those, or if there are modifications that are needed, they go through the process with the city to get those modifications. So we're kind of pre-planning and pre-programming the site, but it really comes down to the site plan process as to, what it actually looks like.
I'd say at any point, like, comments are always acceptable to be turned in. Like, they may not be specifically relevant or appropriate for AUAR. They'll be acknowledged and kind of directed as such. Like, if it's a building quality or building style comment in the scoping review, not relevant right now, and yet it's still important to note, and it will be recorded for us along the way. So I think that the final part of saying these studies are for preparing us for that site plan review, I think are really important. I think it's to make sure that are we comprehensively vetting all of things environmental, the zoning of our area, where the project is going to be located. Are we taking in all the considerations of those factors before we go and say, this is more what it's going to look like? Mm-hmm. And those things are guiding that development as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Clarification again. So TRAC basically gets the land ready with all the permitting and all this, what we're going through. Do you then, as a company, market that and sell it to another company who will actually present the site plan and build it out? Or do you continue to own it and rent it? Or
Yeah, so we have a number of different ways to facilitate the vertical development. One is TRACT can continue to own the land and ground lease it to an end user. TRACT has the ability to be the end user through an affiliate company and go vertical. So we're thinking about that mindset as well. So we can, under an affiliate company, build data centers. Or we can sell the land to a hyperscaler, a Meta, a Google, a Microsoft. We have those relationships with them. So those are kind of like, I would say, 3 exit strategies, 2 of which Tract retains full control of the site in some various form. The third, with the selling, this is going to be a 2-campus site, so it could be that we employ one of our strategies where we say we ground lease or our affiliate builds, but then we sell the other campus to a Microsoft. But we're planning, while we may not ultimately be the end user, we plan as if we are. So we're thinking about that mindset and thinking strategically about what does the end user want and need to set them up for success, and to where, because that's, to be honest and very transparent, that's where our business succeeds, is that if we have a very seamless transition between what we've done, this work here, to the end user, then that makes the land more valuable to them, because this is the heavy lift. Like this is the thing that takes the longest amount of time, requires a lot of investment, time and financially, into the community, into the infrastructure. And so our business is successful when we can essentially hand a turnkey shovel-ready site to an end user, whoever that may be. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the council? Anything else that needs to be included with the presentation?
I guess just to reiterate where we're at in the process, we're in the AUAR process. It's really the upfront due diligence to better understand what could be required, or what existing conditions are out on the site and what could be required. And that's including utilities with water and sewer and other infrastructure, including roads. We're doing a traffic study to better understand, are there turn lanes that are required, or is there any other potential traffic mitigation or traffic calming measures that would be required for this type of a development. We're looking at 2 scenarios. One's an industrial park and one is a technology park. So there will be some, differences identified in the overall AUAR document because of that, just because the 2 different uses look at, traffic, for instance, a little bit differently. So that is all going to be included as part of the overall AUAR document.
Regarding annexation, industrial park, obviously the north side of town, do we have anything that's designated as technology park in the city of Cannon Falls at this point in time?
I don't believe so. No.
Yeah, I don't think we
Yeah.
business park, not technology park. Okay.
And with that, trying to put this all together, when you say 2 campuses, so could there be one industrial, one tech center, or would they not be compatible at all?
No, I'm sorry. And with what we're proceeding with, 2 campuses would be 2 technology park campuses. So 2 data center campuses. Yes, we're not looking at changing the use on one. It's just an opportunity to have multiple end users.
Okay. And if it was industrial, it would be the entire area? You said there were 2 possible.
So we're looking at 2 scenarios. So we're talking 2 different processes and 2 different items. So we're looking at 2 different scenarios. So the entire 251 acres could be an industrial park.
Okay,
Or the 251 acres could be a technology park. That could be multiple campuses.
Okay.
There could be multiple industrial users. Let's say if it does move forward with an industrial park, there could be multiple industrial users that go in there. So I guess you could say maybe 2 industrial parks, for instance, on those 251 acres. But we're looking at those 2 scenarios for the entire study area. Kristen is talking a little bit more specifically as they move forward with kind of entitlements and development.
And just to help clarify, the evaluation of an AUAR, as I understood too, is looking at the highest potential use of the property. It may not necessarily mean the expected use of the property, but the potential use of the property.
Correct.
Hence why also incorporating industrial use into the evaluation of the site.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct. And so we're looking at maximum density of development. So what could go there based on, code or existing constraints. So obviously there are some existing constraints out there with the, setback requirements. There are, I think there is a couple of wetlands that were identified. There's an existing irrigation well. So like just some of those items that have already been identified would set, some constraints on within the study area. So we're looking at maximum density of what could go there. And that's where that mitigation plan comes in. So if, the maximum density of development does move forward, you would identify in the mitigation plan, like, okay, if you are going to impact the wetland that's out there, this is the process, this is the permit that's required, you would be required to provide mitigation, that type of thing. If you need, X many million gallons per day of water, this is the process that would be required for that, including any utility extensions that would be needed on the city infrastructure side. So really, where we're at right now is like upfront due diligence. So really just understanding what's out there. If this were to move forward, what would be required by an end user or by a developer, contractor, et cetera, throughout the full process. They're also great reads late at night compared to environmental rules. They get a little lengthy, I'm going to admit, sometimes, hundreds of pages. There's some out on the EQB. So if you go to the EQB website and you're just kind of wondering what an AUAR looks like, you can actually click on some documents that have been done within the state, so you can kind of see what that looks like.
All right. Is there anything else?
I just want to share like my appreciation for the work that they've been doing so far. I mean, I will say there's a lot of stuff also happening behind the scenes as they're preparing for this. This isn't, we got to get to this stage and then we can start work on the next thing. They're very much doing their diligence to be prepared for that, and excuse me, have been responsive to the city in terms of our requests and helping us navigate through this process as well. Because for me, I know this is my first experience with an AUAR, so I do want to share my thanks for their team and my consultants as well for helping us with that. And in the end, like, this is really helpful for the city as in terms of preparing a site for potential, its best use development. I mean, granted, we have a pretty strong prospect in what this could be, and in the end, we're going to be given a lot of very valuable information on what the site, what the potential is for the site and how it's going to, could impact the city, what we need to do to mitigate those impacts, as well as what the potential is going to be for its future development. So it's really a valuable process to me to help give us that kind of roadmap moving forward and how things can be developed.
Mm-hmm. I guess one thing I did miss to explain, so an AUAR is really valid for only 5 years. So every 5 years, the document needs to be updated. So you're looking at what's been completed for development, what's been completed for mitigation, and what's required moving forward. So this document isn't just a one and done. Once it's done, it's put on the shelf. It's actually reviewed and updated every 5 years to keep it a valid document. So, that would be something to continue to look at as, as things progress on the site, as development progresses in the area, even if there's changes in the city infrastructure side of things, that would need to be updated as part of the environmental review or the AUAR update.
Anything else from the council? Planning and zoning, anything else?
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so
I
much for
appreciate
coming.
it.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it. Shelley, anything? Or Bill?
I just wanted to show everyone that on the city website that there is a that a landing page was created for this project. So if you can't find the link from your documents or whatever sent out, so if you go under the community tab on our website, there is a Cannon Falls Technology Park page that's been created. So on here is where you can find the scoping document, or any other documents. We'll get some other, Kristen, I know, is gonna be creating a landing page from Tract that will also have some FAQs about data centers and that kind of stuff, where that will be, I'll have a link to that on here as well. So any information that we either present, we have projects, there's updates as things go forward, will be on this page as well. So you can either refer people to this, or you can find information here as well.
Laura, will this be on, like YouTube? Will they be able to watch the work session?
I don't know if, are the work sessions televised? Work sessions are not televised.
Okay.
They're recorded, but not televised.
Okay. So that's all I have.
All right.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you so much. Last chance. Other than that, I'd look for a motion to adjourn. Motion from Diane. Aye. Second from Chad. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.